So in today's video, I'm going to share with you a really simple tip, or if you like, a really simple drill that is going to give you much more consistency with things like your pitching, your iron play, and your driver too. But first of all, before we get stuck into sharing the drill, we need to just understand a little bit about what lends itself to consistency. And there are three variables which create consistency that we see with great golfers, or if you like, professional golfers. Now, the first one is swing plane. Swing plane, if I sort of address this golf ball here, and if you drew a line through the heel of the club up through your elbow line, this is kind of like an axis that we want to swing the club back, up and down, and on the way through in the golf swing. If you can get the club moving up and down a consistent swing plane, what that'll do is that will lend itself to a consistent club path. Now, a club path is a measurement in terms of how the club is hitting the ball through the bottom part of the swing. What we tend to see with professional golfers is some of them draw the ball, some of them fade the ball. But the club path, whether a drawer of the golf ball's club path moves slightly to the right and a fader's club path moves slightly to the left, it doesn't matter, because the key term there is like slightly. There's not huge deviations in both of those parameters. And again, this lends itself to the third variable, which is, well, the club face. And I'm sure, hopefully you'll agree that if you can get a consistency in your swing plane, you'll get a consistency in your club path, which will lend itself to a consistency in your club face. And by having those three variables consistent, what that'll lend itself to is consistency. More consistency we see with professional golfers playing 18, 36, 72 holes, as opposed to most amateur golfers that struggle with swing plane, club path and club face, struggle from potentially hole to hole, or 18 to 18 or 9 to 9, depending on the level of the game that you play at. So what that can do is that those three pieces of information can be put under the same umbrella of what we now class as the hand path. So a hand path, and we've seen this from data that's captured with gears and other biomechanical equipment out there, is we know that professional golfers have a very consistent hand path. Professional golfers have different looking golf swings, and this changes depending on the orientation of their arms and body, but how their hands move is really consistent. And what we tend to see is the hands moving close on the way back and on the way down, on the way through, as I'm sort of highlighting here with the example of the golfer on gears. If you can get a consistent hand path, you're more likely to get a consistent swing plane, you're more likely to get a consistency with club path and club face. And going back to the example of, well, how does that help a pitch, how does that help an iron, and how does that help a driver? Well, fundamentally, that it doesn't really matter, because if I stood closer towards the golf ball, I'm therefore going to use a club which is more lofted to, say, hit a pitch shot. Well, if I'm standing closer, the club is designed obviously with, well, more loft, and it's designed with a more vertical shaft angle. The further I move away from the golf ball, then obviously the club shaft just naturally sits on a shallower angle. So my hands and arms move further away from my body because I'm standing further away from the golf ball. But effectively, with things like your swing plane, club path, club face, and things like your hand path, it still stays consistent. So that ultimately lends itself to consistency in the golf swing. So what is a useful drill that you guys can do at home to give you consistency in controlling your hand path? So this drill is tremendously sort of simple, because what it's going to do, and this is how a professional golfer gets consistency in the hand path, is you need to make sure that when you're completing your movement, whether it's a pitch, an iron, or a driver, you are controlling your lead arm and you're controlling your rotation. So we know with the information that is carried out with professional golfers that they only allow their lead arm to come across their chest about, let's say, 20 degrees. So if I hold my lead arm out in front of me and allow my fingertips to come in line with my sternum, let's say that's about as much as I want my lead arm to swing across my body in that backswing position. Well, all of a sudden, what am I now looking for is, as I sort of move back, I need to make sure I get decent chest rotation in the backswing and a good sequence in the downswing to get a consistency in the hand path. As opposed to, like I said, the majority of golfers would tend to do this by just saturating their arms really close to their body. And again, that's what lends itself to the brilliance of this drill. So how do we now use the float and also encourage the hands to work on a good angle? And again, this video is predominantly going to be more interested in the backswing position. You need to make sure you're controlling your lead arm. So as I swing back, I am trying to keep the float in contact underneath my chin like so, underneath my lead arm, pointing up towards my chin like so, and I'm trying to swing my lead arm through my shoulder line. And that's a great reference. Swinging too high will mean that the hands are potentially working too much upright. Swinging too flat maybe brings in that vulnerability of getting the arms too close to the body. So I think as a really simple drill, what you guys can do at home is you get your swing float underneath your lead arm, you point it up towards your chin, and you just concentrate in the mirror and getting your lead arm working across your shoulder line. And that is a great example of a great looking backswing, which is going to give you a much better chance of getting into a great delivery position, impact position, and that kind of finish position as well. That's the consistency in the golf swing. You need a consistency in your hand path, whether that is going to be for a pitch shot, whether it's going to be for an iron swing, or whether it's going to be for a driver. The premise of all of those motions is exactly the same thing. It's just defined by using different types of golf clubs. So I'd strongly suggest that you work on this training aid with this one here to give you that feeling of how to get a consistent hand path. And in the upcoming video, we're going to be talking about the downswing move. So make sure that you subscribe and look out for that one. See you guys again really soon.